everyone, it's Frank, my happy shirt, and those are my helpers, my mates. They're going to help me spot me and film me. So I'm really going to do a serious workout today because my goal is to gain 20-40 pounds of muscles and then go compete in bodybuilding and get oiled up and then play the violin on the stage. So a lot of people ask me, why did you start working out? And my answer has always been the same, because I wanted to feel normal. Okay, it's because my brain is so fucked up and disturbed and bizarre that I could not feel like I could fit in society unless I had a body that's aesthetic and symmetrical. The more muscular I become, the more stable my mind is, because it's like a shield or like a castle that protects my mind from flying over the space and time like crazy bitches. And then since the body is like the bridge between consciousness and the world, between fantasy and reality, if my bridge is stronger, if I can build this bridge to be very, very stable, then I feel like I'm closer to becoming one with reality. So another reason, very obvious reason, if you read Freud, is that I wanted to channel or re-channel my sexuality and my unconscious desire. Today, I'm going to do a normal workout, except during rest periods, instead of just resting like a dumbass, I'm going to talk about my traumatic childhood memories, the fucked up things that were repressed in my subconsciousness. I'm going to let it all out today during my rest so that I can have the energy to work out. And those are all true events. Except that the only thing that I'll be unsure about it is my capacity for recollection, because you know memories aren't static, they're very fleeting. So every time you think of a memory, you're not thinking of the event that actually happened. You're thinking about the last time that you recall that memory. So it gets distorted by a little bit each time I retrieve it. So it's not exactly accurate, but I can swear that in my mind those things really happened. Okay, so the first memory I had as a child is a masturbatory one. I would always masturbate around my house using furniture as props, and then my mom would always catch me in the act. So one day she got fed up with it, so she brought me this children's book, this sex educational books, and read it to me in bed as a bedtime story. And in the book, there's an illustration and some text explaining that if you keep masturbating at age 5 or whatever, your dick's gonna turn to clay. So my mom warned me that, and I didn't believe her, and I actually got horny when listening to that story. So I started masturbating while she was telling me the story of not doing that. And just when I was about to orgasm, she started spanking me. She said, stop that, because my hip was thrusting. So that's what I'm going to do. Thrust my hips, and use my hips. A squat! Okay, my next memory is when I was about 5 and a half. I was in kindergarten, and then for some reason during nap hours, all the snoring sounds of the other kids turned me on. So I would start to masturbate in my sheets when everyone was sleeping. And one day our teacher, she was a female, she caught me and she said, put the thing away. And then I put it away. And then when my mom picked me up, she told her what happened. I couldn't hear what they said, but they were pointing at me and laughing. Even my mom, they were like giggling and laughing in front of me, and my teacher was showing my mom how big my thing was, and then she was like this, and then they were making fun of me. So I got my mates to spot me. Nobody else was gonna do it. So I got them because this next memory is about mates. So when I was about, I think, 6 years old, and we had this Filipino maid, and one day she was just cleaning the dust in the corner, bending down with her ass sticking out, and I got curious, and I went up there and started to just humping her, and then got a boner. Yeah, I didn't orgasm to it, but then she told me how she would really have, I had no idea people actually do those kind of things, you know. So she actually told me that she would give her husband blowjobs, and she demonstrated with a banana, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, people actually do that? And she was like, of course, he was my husband. And then I asked her if they make noises like they do in porno, and she says yes, and then she started to demonstrate how they moan. And then I started to copy her because I wanted to learn how to moan, so we were just, you know, moaning and painting and then rolling on the ground. The next memory was about my parents conceiving my brother. Actually, they did that right next to me. One day in the middle of the night, I was about 8 years old. I woke up and then saw my mom naked, laying next to me, and then her nipples were exposed under the dim light, so it was very sexy. They were erect. And then my dad came out of the bathroom in a bathrobe. The next day I asked my mom if they mated, and we used that word because we always watched Discovery Animal Planet together, so we used mating instead, so it was less awkward. And then she said yes, so she took me to the clinic right away, and then she was pregnant. Actually, there's one thing I forgot to say, is that when my brother was born, before he turned 1, I loved to play with him. So then one day I was trying to rock him back and forth so that he can go to sleep. And then he was laying on his chest on my, area. And then all of a sudden I got a boner. And then I just kept going because it felt so good. And then orgasmed. So this next memory is about my grandfather. When I was about 10, my grandfather had cancer. And then he was in a coma, and when the whole family went to visit him, I caught a glimpse of aloneness with him. My parents went out to get lunch, whatever. So I took off his pants, and I gave his penis a little suck. Just a little bit, maybe that's it, just 2 or 3 strokes. I wanted to see if the indeterminacy between life and death could have the capacity for erection or procreation, and it didn't. Then it wasn't hard. Okay, just about that time, I had a huge obsession with sharks. And I would watch Jaws and pretended I was a shark inside a swimming pool. And then one thing I would do is that I would hold my breath and then just kind of sit still underneath the swimming pool, deep in the water. And I would look up and all the bulges, all the male swimmers were swimming past by me, and they were all wearing tight swimming trunks. And I would just fantasize about, predating on them. Because I couldn't literally prey. I wasn't really a predator. That was my symbolic way of preying, of predating on the male organs. So the next memory, it still has to do with fish. My obsession with sharks led me to adopt some fish from a neighbor. And instead of taking care of them, I got them out of the water and I stabbed them with my fork. And I would smear the bodies and the organs on the dinner table, whatever, and then I would bury the fish in my backyard. The best is in my backyard. And then I would continually go back to the spot and dig them out and check on the process of decomposition. And when the bodies are ripe, I lived on the 12th floor, so I would just toss them out of the window when unfortunate pedestrians were passing by, and then hopefully it would land on their head. I don't remember, I don't think it hit them, but whatever it is. Okay, push press. I didn't have access to porn when I was a little kid, like many others, but I found my solution. My uncle was studying to be a doctor, and then he had all those scientific and medical and anatomical journals and books and encyclopedias and textbooks lying around. I would read the description of biological function of the genitals, and I would actually jack off to those diagrams. Push press, step 2. So the next memory is just about to reach puberty, and I started to notice changes in my body, and the first thing I noticed was, of course, pubic hair, and then I was so terrified because I didn't want to face the responsibility of a grown-up, so I cut my pubic hair off with my scissor, and I gave it to my brother, and I handed it to him, and then he ran, sprinted to my mom, and handed it to her. So when I was about 13 years old, I started to produce sperm. And other kids, when they only start to masturbate when they're teenagers, the first time they orgasm, they can already see the sperm shooting out, thrusting out, the ejaculation. But since I started to masturbate so early, I had the pleasure and the fortune of observing the whole process of sperm production. At first, when I was about 12 years old, I started to notice wet spots, just a little bit of wet spots on my underwear after orgasm. And then I noticed how the last couple of contractions, before that I was shooting blanks. And then the last couple of contractions, something started to drip out. It was clear, it was like very watery. And then it started to become even thicker and then milkier. And by the time I was about 14 years old, thick, milky, white substance was starting to drip out of the tip of my penis. And then by the time I was about 14 and a half years old, the dripping becomes thrusting, and then, yeah, before I knew it, I was fully ejaculating. Okay. Set. And I was very conscious about the quality and the quantity of my semen. And this is when I became obsessive compulsive. I was so obsessive about keeping and making sure that I had the same amount of sperm with the same quality each time I orgasm, that if my last orgasm didn't have as much semen or as white, or if my semen wasn't as white or as thick as my last orgasm, or if the length of the ejaculation wasn't as far, I became depressed. So depressed that I would become suicidal. This is when I started to get depressed and have suicidal thoughts. And I was so concerned about not being able to propagate my genes, not being able to have children, that I actually had to ejaculate inside a measuring cup to measure, and I would write down each time of how much I ejaculated. And if I accidentally bump into my testicle, because I would be worried that my testicles would be damaged, that I wouldn't be able to produce sperm. That one time I was in the bathroom with a ruler just measuring the size, the length, and the diameter of my balls for like 2 hours because I wanted to make sure 100% that my balls didn't shrink. So things went on like that for a while in my teenage years, and before I know it, I was in college, and then I finally got my first girlfriend, and she was 15 years old, and the first time we had sex, I was so scared that the expectation was so high that things have been built up my whole life. I was waiting for this moment, and I was so scared I couldn't get an erection. It's like my fantasy, my imagination has always been chasing my reality. And when we finally got around to my reality, what my imagination and the reality actually means, my ego has nowhere to hide, nowhere to go. So my mind becomes a total blank. So this repetition, this repetitive mechanism, motion of my girlfriend turned into, in my brain, the repetition and the repetitive mundane motion of everyday tasks, like brushing my teeth in the morning and scrubbing my underwear when I do my laundry. Finally, I exploded and I pushed it off my stomach. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I couldn't understand what the meaningless motion was. It was terrible. So, when I finally got over that, I began to have sex regularly. One time I made her give me head in front of a 12-year-old and her neighbor, her 12-year-old neighbor, and then he had never seen anybody ejaculate, so of course he smeared my sperm all over her stomach, and they smelled it, and then his autistic sister, who had a learning disability, was on the bed next to us surfing the internet. All this was going on while my mother was yelling at my brother for not practicing the violin. My brain was so fucked up that no girl would handle it, so they all left me, and I was heartbroken for so many times that one time, after my last girlfriend dumped me, I sat in my staircase and I vowed to myself that I would fuck as many girls as possible within a year span. And then I called that the 100 Girl Project, and I did it. So, yeah, that was a crazy adventure. The craziest was 3 girls in 2 hours. The same club and the same spot in the roof. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Okay. So, right now, just when I was about to stop, I met this girl, Vivian, and she was brave enough to accept my eccentricity and kind of get inside my fucked up head a little bit. I think she got to the 3rd level. I think one of our first meetings, and she agreed to have sex with me in the middle of the street on a bed for one of my performances. And you can see the video under my collections. And then after that, she got even more open-minded, and we did a lot of performance photography stuff together. And then you can check them out in the end of the video. Okay, last set. But I forgot to mention, when I was about 22, I had this girlfriend whose pussy fucking smelled. And the smell won't go away for like days at a time. Sometimes I will not wash my finger after I finger her, just so when she leaves, I can smell my finger when I miss her. When I would go to my roommate, when he's sleeping, just stick my fingers into his nostrils and make her smell her pussy because he wanted to fuck her too. So after watching this, you might be wondering, Frank, are you gay or bi?
I'm neither. I just love the penis because it's so beautiful. And it fulfills the paradox of creative destruction and the beauty of unfulfilled potentiality. Even today, when I watch porn, I type in the search engine, big juicy cock. And even if the girl was super hot, and if the guy didn't have a nice penis, I would not get off. I would always imagine myself as a girl with a huge clitoris, rubbing myself off to big cocks.